She defied the warnings and reunited with the lion she raised. No one was prepared for what happened. She walked up to the fence, not knowing if he still remembered her. The lion stopped, looked at her intently, and let out the same roar from childhood. In that moment, everyone understood. That bond had never been forgotten. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. We'll continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll hear in your life. The Arizona sun burned relentlessly over the plains when Emily arrived at the sanctuary for the first time. Her 8 years of age could barely contain the curiosity bubbling in her chest as she firmly held the hand of her father, Dr. Robert Wilson, a renowned American veterinarian who had just accepted a job at the conservation project in Arizona. The dust raised by the jeep had not yet settled when Emily heard the first roar. It wasn't a frightening sound as she had imagined, but something that seemed to converse with the wind, echoing among the thorny acacias that dotted the golden landscape. Her brown eyes sparkled with fascination as she observed the fences that extended as far as the eye could reach. "Emily, always stay close to the adults," her father warned, adjusting the hat that protected his graying hair from the merciless sun. "This isn't an ordinary zoo. Wild animals live here that are being rehabilitated to return to nature." The girl nodded, but her attention had already been captured by something different. On the other side of the metal fence, near the generous shade of a tree, was the smallest lion cub she had ever seen. It wasn't bigger than a puppy, with golden, fluffy fur and eyes that seemed to carry sadness too deep for such a young creature. Dr. James Thompson, the British coordinator of the sanctuary, noticed the girl's interest. "That's Leo," he explained with his heavy accent. "He arrived just a week ago, lost his mother very young and is still adapting. It's a delicate case. Orphaned cubs don't always manage to develop properly without a family group." Emily approached the fence with cautious steps. There was something in the cub's gaze that touched her deeply, as if she recognized in him a loneliness that she herself had felt since leaving Boston, leaving behind her friends, her school, her beloved grandmother. The move to Arizona had been difficult, despite all the adventure it represented. "Can I get closer?" she asked in a soft voice, without taking her eyes off the small lion that had now raised its head in her direction. Dr. Thompson hesitated for a moment, consulting the girl's father with a glance. Robert nodded slightly, trusting the sanctuary's safety protocol. "Yes, you can, but slowly and without making sudden movements." Emily crouched near the fence at the cub's height. For an instant, time seemed suspended. The small lion watched her with curiosity, tilting his head to one side as if trying to decipher this new presence. Instinctively, the girl extended her small hand toward the grid, with her fingers slightly open. What happened next left all the adults present speechless. Leo approached slowly, sniffing the air. Then, with surprising gentleness, he pressed his front paw against Emily's fingers through the fence. At the moment of contact, the cub emitted a sound that none of the researchers had heard before, a deep and melodic purr that seemed to come from the depths of his little throat. Dr. Thompson opened his eyes in amazement. In his 15 years working with big cats, he had never witnessed similar behavior. That wasn't a typical sound from lion cubs, which were usually much more high-pitched and childlike. It was as if Leo was communicating in his own language, exclusively for that American girl with sweet eyes. "This is extraordinary," he murmured to Robert. "Orphaned cubs are usually very withdrawn in the first few months. Leo barely interacts with us during basic care." Emily remained motionless, feeling the soft paw against her fingers. A strange sensation took hold of her, as if she perfectly understood what the cub was trying to say. It was a feeling of mutual recognition, of two young souls who had found comfort in each other. "He's sad," Emily suddenly said, without taking her eyes off Leo. "He misses his mom, just like I miss Grandma." The adults exchanged meaningful glances. There was something in the simplicity of that observation that carried a deep truth. Dr. Thompson knelt beside the girl, observing the interaction with renewed scientific interest. "How do you know that, Emily?" "He told me," she replied with the typical naturalness of children, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Not with words, but I understand." Robert approached, concerned about the intensity of the connection he was witnessing. As a father, he knew Emily had always been a sensitive child, capable of capturing emotional nuances that others didn't notice. But this seemed to transcend childish intuition. The day was coming to an end when they finally managed to move Emily away from the fence. Leo had remained there throughout the entire visit, refusing to move away even when the caretakers brought his meal. His golden eyes followed every movement of the girl, as if engraving in memory every detail of that first encounter. "Can I come back tomorrow to see him?" asked Emily as they walked back to the jeep. Dr. Thompson looked at Robert, who after a moment of reflection nodded. "Of course you can, dear. Actually, it would be interesting to observe if this connection holds." That night, Emily couldn't sleep properly. Her dreams were populated by images of the golden plains and Leo's expressive eyes. She woke up thinking she heard distant roars, as if the cub was calling to her through the darkness. On the other side of the sanctuary, Leo was spending his first peaceful night since arriving. The caretakers noticed that he had eaten his entire meal and slept deeply, behaviors he hadn't shown for days. It was as if the presence of the American girl had calmed something deep in his wounded soul. Dr. Thompson stayed up late, reviewing scientific literature about interspecies bonds. As a man of science, he sought rational explanations for what he had witnessed. But a part of him, the same part that had led him to dedicate his life to conservation, recognized that some connections transcend purely logical understanding. The following days would bring discoveries that would challenge everything they thought they knew about communication between species, establishing the foundations of a friendship that would mark not only two lives, but would forever change the understanding of possible bonds between humans and wild animals. The weeks that followed the first encounter brought a routine that seemed to defy all scientific expectations. Every morning, after a hurried breakfast at the sanctuary's guest house, Emily ran toward the enclosure where Leo waited for her, and he was always there as if he knew exactly the time of her arrival. Dr. Thompson began to meticulously document each interaction. His VHS camera captured not only the images, but also the unique sounds that Leo emitted exclusively in Emily's presence. They were vocalizations that weren't found in any feline behavior manual. Deep purrs interspersed with soft grunts that seemed to form their own language. "It's impossible," muttered Dr. Peterson, the American zoologist newly arrived at the project, while watching the recordings for the third consecutive time. "Lions don't purr like smaller felines. It's anatomically different. And yet there it is, recorded on video," completed Dr. Thompson, adjusting his glasses while making notes in his field notebook. 3 weeks of observation, and the behavior not only continues, but has evolved. The evolution was truly remarkable. Leo had developed a specific repertoire of gestures and sounds to communicate with Emily. When he wanted to play, he rolled onto his back near the fence. When he felt hungry, he walked to his empty dish and looked meaningfully at the girl. And when he was tired, he simply lay down against the grid, on the side closest to her. Emily, in turn, seemed to intuitively understand each signal. "He wants me to sing that American song," she said one morning, observing Leo, who had positioned himself in a specific way near the fence. "The one by Johnny Cash that my dad always sang to me." And she sang. Her childish voice echoed across the morning plains, while Leo closed his eyes, apparently relaxed. The other animals in the sanctuary also seemed to respond to the melody, creating a moment of absolute peace that made Dr. Thompson lower the camera and simply contemplate. "How does she know?" Robert asked Thompson during one of their evening walks. The American veterinarian still struggled to understand what he was witnessing. "Emily has always been special with animals, but this defies our current understanding of interspecies communication," admitted Thompson. "I've been in contact with colleagues in England and Kenya. No one has documented anything similar." The turning point came in the 4th week, when Emily developed a high fever that kept her in bed for 3 days. During her absence, Leo displayed behavior that alarmed all the caretakers. He completely refused food, constantly remained near the fence facing the guest house, and emitted continuous laments that could be heard miles away. "I've never seen anything like it," said Sarah, the South African veterinarian responsible for the animal's medical care. "It's as if he knows something is wrong with Emily." Dr. Peterson, who had arrived skeptical about the supposed connection, began to question his own convictions. "Perhaps we should consider the possibility that there are forms of communication that we don't yet fully understand." On the 3rd day, when Emily finally had the strength to make a brief visit to the enclosure, supported on her father's arm, Leo reacted in a way that left the entire team speechless. Upon seeing her approach, the young lion came to the fence and, for the first time since his arrival at the sanctuary, lay down completely against the wire, exposing his belly, the most vulnerable of feline gestures, reserved only to demonstrate absolute trust. "He was worried about me," said Emily with a voice still weak from the fever, extending her hand to gently touch the fence. "He can feel when I'm not well." As if responding to her words, Leo emitted a low and prolonged purr, different from all the sounds they had recorded until then. It was a sound of deep relief, of gratitude for her restored presence. After this episode, Dr. Thompson decided to modify the research protocol. In addition to behavioral observations, he began to document the emotional aspects of the interaction, something unprecedented in conservation studies of the time. His daily notes became more reflective, exploring questions that transcended traditional zoology. Day 28. Emily correctly predicted that Leo would refuse the new feed even before it was offered. When asked how she knew, she simply replied that he didn't like the smell. The feed was offered 3 hours later and indeed rejected. Day 32. Leo demonstrated unprecedented protective behavior. When Emily approached the adjacent fence where the injured lioness is, he physically positioned himself between them, blocking the girl's passage. 2 days later, we discovered that the lioness was incubating an infection that made her more aggressive. Day 35. Longest vocalization recorded so far. Leo conversed with Emily for almost 10 minutes, alternating different tones and intensities. The girl responded with words in English as if maintaining a real dialogue. The evidence accumulated, but so did the questions. How could an 8-year-old child have developed such synchrony with a wild animal? How to scientifically explain the apparent capacity for emotional communication between such different species? Dr. Peterson, initially the most skeptical of the team, began to make his own observations. "Science taught me to question, but also to recognize when I'm facing something that expands our knowledge," he wrote in his personal diary. "This girl and this lion are teaching us that nature still holds secrets about connection and empathy." The 6th month of coexistence brought an even more surprising discovery. Emily developed the ability to anticipate Leo's behavior with impressive precision. She knew when he was about to become agitated, when he needed more space, when he desired interaction. "It's as if she reads his thoughts," commented Sarah during a team meeting. And the most impressive thing is that Leo seems to do the same with her. The proof came when Emily, playing near another enclosure, tripped and hurt her knee. Before she even began to cry, Leo was already running toward the fence, emitting alert sounds that made all the adults turn to the situation. "How did he know she got hurt?" asked Robert, treating his daughter's superficial wound. The answer would come only years later, when Emily would become one of the world's leading experts in interspecies communication. But at that moment, she was just an American girl who had found her soulmate in the most unlikely form possible, an orphaned lion cub in the heart of Arizona. The sun was setting once more over the plains when Emily said goodbye to Leo, promising to return the next day. He watched her leave, as he always did, remaining by the fence until the jeep disappeared on the dusty road. It was a ritual that would repeat for many months, strengthening a bond that would not only defy scientific expectations, but would forever change the lives of all involved. The 10th month of friendship between Emily and Leo brought changes that no one on the sanctuary team had anticipated. What had begun as a small and fragile cub had transformed into a robust young lion, with defined muscles and an incipient mane that was beginning to turn golden under the Arizona sun. His paws, once delicate like those of a kitten, were now powerful, and his roars had gained the depth characteristic of his species. Dr. Thompson observed these transformations with a mixture of pride and growing concern. In his daily notes, he recorded not only Leo's physical development, but also the evolution of his social behavior. The young lion showed signs that his wild nature was awakening, even while maintaining the special connection with Emily. "He's getting too big for the current enclosure," commented Sarah during a routine inspection, "and the genetic tests arrived yesterday. The results are impressive." Dr. Peterson opened the envelope with the laboratory results, his eyes quickly scanning the data. "Extraordinary," he murmured. "Leo's genetic lineage is extremely rare. He carries markers from populations that we believed extinct in the region." Thompson felt his heart accelerate as he understood the implications. This means he's genetically too valuable to remain here," Peterson completed with regret. "The captive breeding program at Yellowstone National Park needs this lineage. They've already expressed interest when they learned of the results." The silence that followed was loaded with meaning. Everyone knew that conversation would eventually come, but no one was truly prepared to face it. Leo wasn't just another animal at the sanctuary. He was part of a unique story that had deeply touched each person involved in the project. "When would the transfer be?" asked Sarah, although she already feared the answer. "As soon as possible," Peterson answered. "Leo is at the ideal age for integration with other lions. If we wait longer, the process becomes exponentially more difficult." Dr. Thompson removed his glasses and massaged his temples, feeling the weight of responsibility. "We need to talk with Robert and Emily. They have the right to know before any official decision." The conversation that followed that afternoon was one of the most difficult in Robert's life. Sitting on the porch of the guest house, watching Emily play with some colorful stones she had collected on the plains, he sought the right words to explain a situation that he himself still struggled to accept. "Emily, dear, I need to talk to you about Leo," he began with a gentle voice. The girl immediately raised her eyes, her childish intuition capturing the seriousness in her father's tone. "Is he sick?" she asked with genuine concern. "No, love, Leo is very well. Actually, he's growing so well that he needs to go to another place." Emily felt the world tremble around her. "Why? He's happy here. We're happy together." Robert knelt beside his daughter, choosing each word carefully. "Remember when we talked about why we're here in Arizona? About how our work is to help animals have the best possible life?" She nodded, her eyes already brimming with contained tears. "Leo has something very special in his blood, something that can help his entire species continue to exist. There's a place where he can find a family of lions and have cubs that will also be special like him." "But he already has a family," protested Emily, her voice trembling. "He has us. He has me." The pain in his daughter's voice almost broke Robert's resolution, but he knew he needed to be strong. "I know, dear, and that will always be true, but sometimes when we love someone very, very much, we need to let that person go so they can be completely happy." Emily remained silent for long moments, processing information that her 9-year-old mind struggled to fully comprehend. When she finally spoke, her maturity surprised her father. "For how long will he be away?" "We don't know, love. It could be a very long time." "Will he remember me?" Robert hugged his daughter, feeling his own tears threatening to escape. "I'm sure he will. Some bonds are too strong to be forgotten." The days that followed the announcement were laden with palpable melancholy. Emily continued visiting Leo daily, but there was a subtle difference in their interactions. It was as if both felt that something was changing, that the time they had together had become precious and finite. Leo seemed more attentive, more affectionate. His soft roars became more frequent, as if trying to engrave in memory every sound, every shared moment. During play, he showed himself to be gentler, more careful, as if understanding the fragility of those last encounters. "He knows, doesn't he?" observed Dr. Thompson, filming one of the last interaction sessions. "Somehow he senses that he's going to leave." Emily was singing to Leo for the last time, an American lullaby that her grandmother used to sing to her. The young lion had lain down completely relaxed, his golden eyes fixed on the girl's face, as if wanting to memorize every detail. "Leo," she whispered, bringing her hand to the fence one last time, "I want you to know that you'll always be my best friend. No matter where you are, you'll carry a little piece of my heart with you." The lion pressed his paw against her fingers through the grid and emitted the longest and most expressive purr he had ever produced. It was a sound that carried gratitude, love, and the silent promise that he too would never forget. The morning of departure came with a golden dawn that painted the plains in melancholic tones. The transport team had arrived during the night, bringing the special cage that would take Leo to his new life in Yellowstone Park. Emily woke up early, even before her father tried to wake her. She put on her favorite outfit, a yellow dress that she always said matched the color of Leo's eyes, and braided her hair with the care of someone preparing for an important occasion. "You don't have to be present at the time of sedation if you don't want to," offered Robert, concerned about the emotional impact on his daughter. "I need to be there," replied Emily with determination that surprised by its firmness. "He'll be scared if I'm not there, and I promised I would always be there when he needed me." Leo's sedation was conducted with the utmost care possible. Dr. Sarah prepared the exact dose for an animal of his weight and age, While the team strategically positioned themselves around the enclosure, Emily remained visible to Leo throughout the process, talking to him in a soft voice. "It's just going to be a little sleep," she said, tears finally flowing freely down her face. "When you wake up, you'll be in a wonderful place, with other lions who will love you very much." Leo fought against the sedative as long as he could, his eyes remaining fixed on Emily until the last possible moment. When he finally succumbed, his head gently tilted, but his eyes remained open, focused on her until consciousness completely faded. The moment of loading Leo into the cage was witnessed in respectful silence by the entire team. It was the end of an extraordinary chapter that had changed not only the life of an American girl, but the understanding of all about possible bonds between different species. As the transport vehicle disappeared on the dusty road, raising a golden cloud against the horizon, Emily murmured a promise that would echo for years in her heart. "One day we'll meet again, my friend, I promise." 20 years had passed since that golden morning when Emily saw Leo leave for the last time. The 9-year-old American girl had transformed into Dr. Emily Wilson, one of the most respected ethologists in the world, specializing in effective bonds between species and interspecies communication. At 29, her resume included doctorates from prestigious universities, publications in internationally renowned scientific journals, and invitations to speak at the largest research centers on the planet. But none of this had completely filled the void left by a young lion who had departed when she was still just a child, passionate about animals. The opportunity to return came through an unexpected invitation. The same Dr. Thompson, now director of an international conservation program, had contacted her to lead innovative research on the reintegration of felines into their natural habitats. The project would be developed at Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming. "Emily," Thompson said during the video call that would change her life again, "it may seem like a coincidence, but there's a lion in the park that, well, that might particularly interest you." Emily's heart accelerated before Thompson even completed the phrase. During all those years, she had kept herself informed about Leo through contacts in the International Conservation Network. She knew that he had adapted well to the park, that he had become a successful breeder, and that his rare genetic lineage had produced several healthy litters. "Is he still alive?" she asked with a voice choked with emotion. "Not only alive, but leader of one of the most stable groups in the park. Emily, I need to be honest with you. We don't know if he still remembers. It's been 2 decades. Science suggests that—" "I know what science suggests," Emily gently interrupted, "but I also know that some bonds transcend time and scientific explanations." The journey back to the American West was filled with memories that Emily had carefully guarded in her heart. Sitting on the plane, she leafed through an old album with photographs from that golden era, grainy images of a smiling girl next to a lion cub, records of a friendship that had influenced her entire professional trajectory. Each study she had developed, each article she had published, each innovative technique of communication with wild animals had been born from that first magical connection with Leo. She had become an expert in something she had experienced for the first time at 8 years old, the ability to establish empathic bonds with other species. Dr. Mark Johnson, the American veterinarian responsible for the feline sector of the park, received her with a mixture of curiosity and respectful skepticism. "Dr. Wilson, it's an honor to receive you. I must admit that I'm curious to see if the stories I've heard about you and the lion we call King are true." "King?" asked Emily, smiling as she realized that Leo had gained a new name, more majestic, suited to his status as a patriarch. "That's what the team named him when he took leadership of the group. He's an impressive animal, strong, intelligent, protective, but he also has unique behaviors that we've never observed in other lions." As they drove through the vastness of the park, Johnson explained that King had developed an unusual tolerance to human presence, always maintaining a respectful distance, but never showing the defensive aggression typical of wild lions. Even more intriguing was his reaction to certain sounds, specifically music and melodic vocalizations, that made him approach the research fences. "It's almost as if he were looking for something," commented Johnson, "or for someone." When they finally arrived at the sector where King lived with his group, Emily felt time turn back. There he was, a magnificent lion in his full maturity, with a thick golden mane that formed a natural crown around his noble face. He was drinking water at a natural pond, surrounded by 3 lionesses and 2 adolescent cubs. It was impossible not to recognize those golden eyes, even after so many years. "That's him," whispered Emily, feeling involuntary tears welling up. "That's my Leo." Johnson stopped the vehicle at a safe distance and observed as Emily slowly got out. For a moment, nothing happened. King continued drinking, apparently indifferent to the human presence. The lionesses remained alert but relaxed, trusting their companion's judgment. Then Emily did something she hadn't done in 2 decades. She approached the protection fence and emitted a soft sound, almost inaudible, the special greeting she used to use when Leo was a cub. The effect was instantaneous and left Johnson speechless. King raised his head immediately, water still dripping from his whiskers. His eyes scanned the area until they found Emily, and then something extraordinary happened. The powerful lion slowly approached the fence, his steps deliberate and cautious, as if he didn't completely believe what he was seeing. When he came close enough, Emily repeated the greeting, this time with more clarity. King's response was a low and prolonged roar, not aggressive or territorial, but deeply emotional. It was the same type of vocalization he emitted as a cub, only deeper and more powerful. "My God," murmured Johnson, filming the scene with trembling hands. "Is it really possible that he remembers?" Emily moved even closer to the fence, extending her hand as she did in childhood. King hesitated for only a moment before pressing his powerful muzzle against the grid, close to her fingers. The purr that emerged from his throat was unmistakable, the same unique sound he produced exclusively for her 2 decades earlier. "Hi, my old friend," said Emily, with a voice broken by emotion. "I promised I would come back." The weeks that followed were a period of mutual rediscovery. Emily established her research base near King's territory and spent hours observing and documenting behaviors that defied all scientific expectations. The lion began to appear regularly near the fence whenever she was present, sometimes bringing his cubs with him, unprecedented behavior that suggested not just recognition, but transmitted trust. Dr. Peterson, now a respected senior researcher, flew specially to witness the reunion. "Emily," he said during one of their nightly conversations around the campfire, "what I'm witnessing here will change our understanding of memory and affective bonds in wild animals. You're experiencing a scientific phenomenon." "No," Emily gently corrected, watching King rest near the fence under the American moonlight. "I'm experiencing a friendship. Science is just our attempt to understand something we've always known to be possible, that true love knows no barriers of time or species." The most emotional moment came during the 3rd week, when King did something that left the entire research team in ecstasy. He brought his youngest granddaughter, a cub of a few months, and gently positioned her near the fence where Emily was sitting. Then he touched his muzzle to the small lioness and looked significantly at Emily. It was a formal introduction, a gesture of absolute trust that meant, "This is my family, and I want you to know them." "It's as if he were passing on a legacy," observed Johnson, amazed, "introducing the new generation to the most important person of his youth." Emily remained in the park for 3 months, time enough to extensively document King's behavior and his group. Her findings would result in revolutionary scientific articles about interspecies bonds and long-term memory in wild felines. But for her, the real value of those months wasn't in the scientific discoveries, but in the confirmation of something she had always known in her heart. True love transcends time, distance, and differences. Genuine friendship leaves indelible marks that not even decades can erase. And sometimes, if we're lucky enough, the universe grants us the opportunity to reunite with those who have permanently marked our lives. On the night before her departure, Emily spent hours sitting near the fence, talking softly with King, as she did when they were both younger. He remained there throughout the entire conversation, sometimes emitting his unique purrs, as if he also knew it was a special farewell. "Thank you," she whispered, as the dawn began to gild the American horizon. "Thank you for teaching me that love has no boundaries and that some bonds are eternal." King rose slowly, approached the fence one last time, and emitted a soft roar, not of farewell, but of mutual gratitude for a friendship that had enriched 2 lives in unimaginable ways. Today, Dr. Emily Wilson directs an international research institute on interspecies communication. Her revolutionary techniques have helped in the conservation of endangered species around the world. She returns to Wyoming twice a year, always visiting King, who at 21 years old continues to be a respected and loving patriarch. They age together now, sharing a friendship that began when both were orphans seeking connection in a vast and sometimes lonely world. It is living proof that some encounters are so special that they echo through time, reminding us that true love, in all its forms, is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. And when the wind of the American plains carries king's roars across the golden vastness, those who know the story swear they can hear not just the call of a majestic lion, but the voice of an old friend saying, "I'm here, I remember, and I will never forget." The end of the story. Dear listeners, we hope that Emily and Leo's story has deeply touched your hearts, just as it touched ours while we shared this extraordinary journey of love and friendship that transcends all barriers. This narrative reminds us that true bonds know no limits of time, distance, or differences between species. If this story awakens special emotions in you, we invite you to explore our exclusive playlist with equally touching narratives that celebrate the purest and most transformative ties of life. You can find it by clicking on the link here beside. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the moving stories we bring daily. Each like you leave motivates us to continue sharing these narratives that explore the beauty and complexity of human feelings and connection with nature. We're eager to read your comments and know how Emily and Leo's story impacted you. Share your own experiences with special bonds, whether with pets, with nature, or with loved ones. Your stories enrich our community and inspire new narratives. Until the next story, keep your hearts open to the wonders that life may hold for us.